Hi, welcome to episode 1 of the Flax Golden Knits podcast. My name is Kristen. I live in Nashville, Tennessee with my husband and our 2 cats, Francis and Manny. And you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Flax Golden Knits. Here's Manny. He's in my lap. We'll see if he stays. He didn't like that at all. So this is a knitting podcast, but the plan is kind of that this will be probably 85% knitting, about 7% other craftiness, and 3% miscellany. I hope that's 100%. So I'm so excited to be starting this podcast. I've wanted to podcast for such a long time. About the same amount of time that I've been knitting, which is 9 years. I started knitting in January of 2009, and after a really bad breakup, and that's around the same time that I also got really into podcasts. My favorite podcasts, especially back then, were storytelling podcasts. So that is what I thought that I always wanted to do, and to some extent, it is still what I want to do. But I felt really overwhelmed by the fact that I didn't feel like I had the skill set. I didn't feel like I had the skill set, the voice, the knowledge base, or the equipment, really, the resources to record a podcast back then. And so I gave up. I tried with some borrowed equipment, and then I got really overwhelmed by the editing process. And so I gave up. And then I met my husband a couple of years later, and life took over. And yeah, as life does, and I got really busy and kind of just put it to the back of my mind. But I kept, it was still back there, and here I am 9 years later after first thinking about it, and I'm finally deciding to give it a go. I think that I'm just older, I've lived more life, and I have more confidence in my ability to figure things out as I go along, and figure things out if there's something I really want to learn, as well as I guess less willingness to sit on the sidelines if there's something that I want to do. Because, as they say, life is too short. So here I am. I don't know that I have anything to offer still. There are so many amazing knitters out there and amazing knitting podcasters, and I don't know that my skill level in knitting life is that interesting, but I have just discovered the world of YouTube knitting podcasts and YouTube podcasts in general, really. And what I have learned from watching those is that everyone has a story, and everyone's story is interesting. And so I'm just adding my story to the interwebs. I'm just putting my story out there, and I have absolutely loved getting to know people through their podcast and getting to know a little bit more about their lives. And it's just so interesting, everybody's different lives and the different places where they live and the different things that they do, not just knitting, but just all of their lives. So I'm putting myself out there, and maybe it'll speak to somebody, and maybe I'll get to know some other people. As many podcasts have said, I also have social anxiety disorder, and just kind of general anxieties and neuroses. So I have a hard time making friends in real life, and my husband's really helped with that. I have a lot of friends through him now. But I don't have a lot of crafty friends. I have maybe three, I know maybe three crafty people total, and none of them are quite as obsessive as I am about knitting or maybe any other of their crafts. So I am excited to learn or meet some other. I'm excited to meet some other people. So I'm excited to meet some other crafty people through this medium. So I started knitting in 2009 in January, and I immediately fell in love. And I would love to say that I have knit every single day since then, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth. Um, I've been off and on with it over the years. I started dating my husband in February of 2011, and I got a bit swept up into that relationship. My husband is a very strong personality, and I am a serious introvert, but at the time I was so craving newness and adventure, and I just got swept up into that relationship and into his life. And um, it wasn't a bad thing, but I did lose myself a bit, and I left knitting behind a little bit. I did still knit, but things were so busy and so much fun and just so new and different that I really, um, like I said, got swept up into that. But I did always return to knitting over the years when times got tough, when I felt down and depressed, when I went through difficult emotional times. So because knitting was such a comfort, and so I fell back into knitting in those times to be comforted and to have something to hold on to in that way. And knitting rescued me many times. And then 2016 and 2017 were both very difficult years, and I turned to knitting and really knit consistently over those couple of years. And I decided that one of the reasons that I returned to knitting in tough times is that it reminds me of who I am. And I decided that this time, when I started feeling better, I was going to carry knitting back into my happiness with me and hold on to it. And it has really helped me to sort of find myself again and find my place, how I can be myself in my relationship, and how I can be myself in my life and still be a maker, which is sort of the essence of who I am and who the common thread throughout my life, who I have been since the earliest time I can remember. I hope you can't see me spitting at the camera. So as things did start to get better towards the end of 2017, so really just a few months ago, I really did carry knitting with me, and I do feel happier and more whole and content, and I'm still happily knitting. And so here I am to share my knitting with you. So, so without further ado, let's talk about some knitting. So what I want to talk about today is I have a couple of FOs. Oh, there goes Manny. I guess I moved too much for him. I have a couple of FOs to share. I have a few works in progress. I have some acquisitions, and I have some Imminent Cast Ons and some daydream knitting. So I'm going to first share my FOs, one of which I'm wearing. This is the Beckett Pullover by Marie Greene of Olive Knits. It's made out of, I'll have to read this because I have to, yeah. It's Gailsk yarn, GEI. I'll put it up on the screen because I really don't know how to pronounce it. It's a 3-ply fingering weight, and it's 55% wool and 45% cotton. It's a simple top-down raglan And it has this beautiful, here, I'm going to stand up and show you. It has this beautiful, that is a camisole, but it is a light pink color, so it just looks like my skin. It has a beautiful cable detailing down both sides, and then the cable detailing echoes on the sleeves, which is kind of the inside of the sleeve, so I don't know how much anybody ever sees it. It's really hard to do this backwards. It's kind of hard to see the cable detailing. It doesn't show up super well. It doesn't show up super well, but it was a really easy knit. I loved knitting this sweater. Although I did make it a bit short, I want to block it again and see if I can get a little bit more length out of it. But it was a pretty easy, straightforward knit. I loved the pattern. I love the cable detailing. I love the high-low hem, the split hem, and it's kind of longer in the back. And yeah, I've gotten so many compliments on it. Here he comes again. I've gotten so many compliments on it, and I really, it's the first sweater that I've knit that actually fits the intended recipient. And it's very wearable, and I've worn it to work already several times. It is very conservative, which is perfect for my work. But yeah, I really loved this pattern. I would recommend really any of Marie Greene's patterns. I think that she writes, her patterns are easy to follow, and well, this is really the only pattern. The pattern was really easy to follow and straightforward. I'm just repeating myself now. I'm sure I'll get better as I go along. And then my second finished object, FO, are the Amelia Socks. I have them on the sock blockers. The Amelia Socks by Verena Cohrs. I knit this out of Marion Jade Fiber Arts sock yarn in the Love Potion colorway, and I absolutely love this colorway. It's sort of a peachy pinky colorway with those chartreuse speckled pops, and I loved every minute of knitting this pattern and knitting with this yarn. It's just a very simple pattern. This is the other side of it. It's really hard to do, and my cat's knocking things over. This is the other side of it. It's just plain stockinette. The only detailing, the only patterning is this sort of twisted stitch flower pattern. One moment, please. Manny Moo, what are you doing? He's trying to get into a tiny, tiny box. What are you doing? I'm gonna go get him. He was trying to get into a look at him. Look at him. He's so cute. Oh, he's so cute. Oh. He's my boy. He's my boy cat. So the Amelia Socks by Verena Cohrs. I absolutely adore this yarn by Marion Jade Fiber Arts in the Love Potion colorway, and I adored the pattern. Now it does say in the pattern description that the pattern, the stitch pattern is easy to remember, which I did not find that to be the case. It's a 29 row repeat, and it just wasn't, for me, it wasn't intuitive, and maybe for somebody else it would be, but it wasn't difficult, but it wasn't intuitive. I always had to have the pattern with me and keep up. Eventually I did learn to read the pattern. I could read the pattern and know where I was. I didn't have to keep up so meticulously with which row I was on, but I did have to read the next line each time to remind myself of what I was supposed to do next. And that might just be me. But it was a well-written pattern, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. These are my birthday socks. My birthday is actually tomorrow, and so I bought this yarn and the pattern specifically to make my birthday socks with. And I just absolutely love them. So one thing I did want to say about this pattern is the pattern recommends that you bind off, because they are a toe-up pattern, but the pattern recommends that you bind off in, it's a 1x1 twisted rib that you finish off with to sort of carry the pattern up. And the pattern recommends that you bind off in the invisible ribbed bind off, which does make a really neat, good looking bind off edge. I'll show it to you off the sock blocker. It makes a really pretty, neat bind off edge, but I find that it's a little bit, it's not as stretchy as I'd like it. I have to pull it a little to get it over my heel, to get it on my foot. So I think that I would use my usual, I don't think I'll do that again. I don't think I'll use the invisible ribbed bind off again for socks. I think I'll use my usual bind off, which I can talk about in another episode because I'm running out of time here. So moving on to works in progress. I have 3 works in progress on the needles right now. I am not a monogamous knitter. I'm always knitting at least 2 things. And usually I have more things on the needles, although I do often sort of zero in on one thing that I am more obsessed with than everything else. But I'm going to show you my works in progress. Like I said, I only have 3, but I'm going to show them to you from oldest to newest. And the first one that I have, or the oldest one I have, is in this project bag that I made right after I started knitting, and I actually started sewing right around the same time. And I went to Goodwill and I got these old men's shirts and I cut them up and made them into project bags. And I still love this project bag. It's perfect for a pair of socks. And look at I just love this fabric, this men's shirt fabric. Anyway, I think I might make some more of these soon. I am sort of running low on project bags. Anyway, my first work in progress is the Be Simple Shawl, and it's one of the variations of the Be Simple Shawl. The Be Simple Shawl is by Carolyn Glauz-Todrank. I cannot pronounce her name. I will also put this on the screen. It is really difficult to figure out how to do this backwards. Anyway, that is the pattern. It's a very, very simple shawl. It's a free Ravelry download. But it's just a very simple, easy grab and go project. You do with the variation with the yarn overs have to keep up with how many rows you've done before you do another yarn over row, but that's even pretty simple. I wouldn't necessarily call that cinema knitting, but it is easy, conversation knitting. Making it out of Freya Fine Handpaints lace weight in the Nautilus colorway, and it's this beautiful. It sort of had this pinky beige. Let's see, it's not. It's a little blown out for sure. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit more accurate. But it started in the middle. I'm pulling from the center because it started with this pinky beige yarn, and now it's slowly turning the blue, the darker blue. And it is just really fun to knit with this yarn and see the color changes. This is sort of my grab and go project. I don't work on this all of the time. It is what I work on in between projects, and when I just need something kind of mindless and simple to work on, and if I don't have any vanilla socks. So I've been working on it for a few months, and that's all I've done. But I would highly recommend this pattern if you're newer and you want to knit a shawl, or if you have some random skeins of yarn, or if you're like running out the door and you don't have any knitting on the needles and you just really want to cast something on. The Be Simple shawl, the original Be Simple shawl without the yarn overs, it's super easy to memorize. It's a free pattern. It can be knit with any, really any weight of yarn, and you can knit it with one skein of lace weight or one skein of sock yarn, fingering weight yarn, and yeah, it's just a great, easy pattern. I would highly recommend it. So my second work in progress is another kind of grab and go project, something that I'm not like, oh my gosh, I must have this now. I'm not really intent on working on it all the time. But it is the Sockhead hat, which I won't show you a picture of because I feel like everybody, hang on, Minnie Moo, quit it. Quit it. I feel like everybody and their mother has knit this pattern in the past couple of years, and I am really late to the party on this one. Oh man. You're going to have to pardon my hair. It is in need of a haircut. So the Sockhead hat is made out of sock yarn. It was designed to be like a simple sock yarn project to use with your sort of random skein of sock yarn that you weren't sure what to do with or whatever. And I am actually going to stripe it, and I've started it with the ribbing in this all these extra needles. Anyway, I'm all tangled. But I started the ribbing in the gray, and this is just a Cascade Heritage sock yarn. The Cascade is 75-25. Superwash wool and nylon. So I'm striping it with Paca-Peds sock yarn in the Kaleidosock colorway. And this is 20% alpaca, 65% superwash wool, and 15% nylon. So I think that will be really fun, these two striped together. And yeah, it's just another grab and go project, and I'm keeping that. I don't own any project bags that anybody else has made. I would like to, but I've always just made my own, and this is one that I made recently. It's sort of a bento bag, and I love it. This fabric that I've had forever. And I don't know who made this fabric. Some people are so good at keeping up with that. I can tell you about all my yarn, but the fabric I don't know. This fabric, super cute, sort of paper doll fabric. And then the inside is hearts. And I love this project bag. And it's big enough to fit a few small projects in and carry them around if I need to go someplace. And my third project that I have on the needles, I cast this on last night. This is in another project bag that I made myself out of yarn that I've had forever. Hold on one moment. I'm back. So my third work in progress is a pair of socks that I cast on last night. And they're just my vanilla socks, which I have only recently figured out how to make a sock that actually fits my foot. And I did that with the Fish Lips Kiss Heel sock pattern, which everybody has tried. I am also very late to that pattern. But if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's only $1 on Ravelry, and she gives you like 16 pages of how to measure your foot, how to make like a cardboard cutout of your foot or anybody's foot that you want to make a sock with. And I made some surprise socks for my husband for Christmas with this technique, and it's the first pair of socks that I have ever made that fits him really well, and I didn't have to try them on him as I went. So it's great for gift knitting socks if you are a person who likes to gift knit socks. So I'm making this out, I'm making these. See, I started in different places in the two skeins, and I've only gotten like not even a full toe done yet, but they have been started. And I'm making these out of 50-gram Plymouth Forever yarn. Which way? Stop. Plymouth yarn. And I got these at House of Yarn the other day, which is our really awesome yarn store here in Nashville. We have two really good ones, and the closest one to where I work is House of Yarn. And it really is as good as Amy Florence is always raving about. They have so much stuff in there. I have another few acquisitions to show you that I got the other day. But I got this because it looks so Valentine's-y. It's all pink and red and has a little bit of yellow patterning, I think, and then some black or some maybe gray and white, sort of dark gray, sort of black and white patterning. But the pink and the red together, I just love. So I think I'm just going to do a plain vanilla sock. There's still part of me that wants to do a hitchhiker sock, which is the also a free pattern on Ravelry, and it is super simple and sort of does a chevron-y zigzag pattern. But it's an easy to memorize and sort of easy to do pattern. But I'm knitting these toe up on size 0 needles, and I'll do a fish lips kiss heel, most likely. So that is work in progress number 3. In another bag that I made for myself, I love this bag, and I get so many compliments on this bag. This is also fabric that is really old with the little owls. I just love them. And a little linen or canvasy. And then a polka dot inside, sort of a peachy polka dot. I love this. I just love it. All right, so I'm going to show you a few more acquisitions that I got from House of Yarn the other day. Oh, one of my acquisitions was actually these sock blockers, which I'm super excited about. I've never owned sock blockers before, and they're the Bryspun sock blockers in a size small, which I think I needed the size medium because I have, yeah, they're a little bit, I don't know, but they work very well, and they I never saw the point of having sock blockers before, and now I am a true convert. I love the way it just stretches the sock out and makes it look so finished. And they're going to fold up so nicely, and I'm very excited about them. I like them a lot. And so the third acquisition that I got, really, this is 3 acquisitions, but it's all for one thing. I got 3 skeins, well, 2 skeins of Woolen Boon MCN in the Robin Sparkles colorway and the Buffy colorway. And they are so nice together. The speckles in them are very similar colors. See if I can. They have some similar colors in their speckles. And so I'm going to pair these with this. This is just 80/20 superwash merino and nylon. And this is Old Rusted Chair, which is dyed in Nashville, Tennessee. And in the Shipwreck colorway. So pretty. So I'm pairing all 3 of these together. Pairing all 3 of these together, and I'm going to make the Stay Soft Shawl by Veera Valimaki. I will show you a picture. So it's a Stay Soft Shawl by Veera Valimaki, and I'm going to, the The lighter two that I got are the ones that I'm going to sort of fade into each other or stripe together, like right there. And then the shipwreck color I'm going to put along the bottom. And I'm very excited. I wanted to knit this shawl. It's a very simple garter stitch, sort of asymmetrical triangular shawl. And I've wanted to knit this, and I started with some other yarns. And I actually started it with some Isager alpaca yarn, and the skeins were too small. I don't know what I was thinking when I bought them, but there wasn't enough yardage in each skein. And then when I got them home and started the project, I didn't really like the way they were all coming together. So I decided to start that over, and I'm going to start over with these. And I just absolutely, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about them. So as soon as I can get those wound up, I will get that going. So now I'm going to talk about Imminent Cast Ons, which that was one of them. I am ready to cast that on as soon as I can get those skeins caked up. And another Imminent Cast On is I want to knit the Speckled Space Socks, another pattern that I'm very late to the party on. I'm going to knit them 2 at a time, which is how I like to knit my socks. Toe up, which is how the pattern is written. The Speckled Space Socks are another free Ravelry download. They're by Amanda Stevens. Everybody has knit these socks already, I feel like. There have been, I think in the Pin, Feather, and Pearls podcast, when she did her Spacey Sock along, or whatever that was called. She knit those, and I am very excited to knit them out of this yarn. This is by Lady Pearl Designs. I got it on Etsy. She has an Etsy shop. And this is in her The Force Awakens colorway, which was the Star Wars movie that came out in 2015. And I found this yarn online, and I bought it in sort of anticipation of the new Star Wars movie that just came out, The Last Jedi. And I wanted to cast it on so that I could knit these in the movie, and then it just didn't work out because I had Christmas project knitting on the needles. So I'm super excited to get these cast on. And you can, I love this yarn. I thought when I bought it that it was going to be deeper colors, that the colors were going to be deeper. And this is actually a little bit blown out. They are a little bit, no, actually that is pretty close. The blue is a little bit more robin egg than it's showing up, but you can definitely see the BB-8 sort of gray and orange in there, and just, yeah, I love this yarn. I'm so excited to cast on these socks. And so that is another Imminent. Here, I'll show you the Speckled Space Socks. So the Speckled Space Socks, you can see there, have that textured chevron pattern in them, and they're really good for the sort of speckly, variegated yarn. I think the pattern will show up nicely with the yarn that I've chosen. So my final Imminent bind off is the Slable Hat by Woolly Wormhead, and it's in the Twisted Woolly Toppers book. And it's just this really pretty cabled, very textured hat. And I realized this year that I only have one hat that I've knit myself. From 9 years of knitting, I only own one hat. And it is not a hat that I particularly love. So it's one of my goals for this year to knit myself some more hats. I'm going to knit it out of, actually, one of the Isager yarns that I was knitting my Stay Soft shawl in, that I have frogged, and it is in the gold colorway. I'm not sure that that is really an accurate representation. of the color. It's a little bit more, it's definitely more gold and less green than that. Which is funny because I feel like this is a good representation of the green. I'm not sure of this sweater. But it is Isager Yarns. And it's Isager Strick Alpaca 2 is what this is. And it's a fingering, it's sort of a light fingering weight. And I love this color. My friend Megan makes fun of me all of the time because every pattern that I like is usually in this, is either like a mustardy yellow or gold color. And I've started becoming very aware of that, and kind of like when I really like a pattern, looking at it and saying, do I really like the pattern, or do I like it because it's yellow or gold? um, so I have been knitting for 9 years, and I have been hearing about woolly wormhead for 9 years, and I've never knit a woolly wormhead pattern. So I'm very excited to be casting on this label hat very soon. So now that was my final imminent cast on, things that I know that I'm going to cast on probably within the week. And now I'd like to move to a couple of daydream cast-ons, daydream knits that I'm really strongly thinking about. So I know I said that I was going to talk about I know I said in my introduction that I was going to talk about some daydream knitting, but I've actually run out of time, and I'd like to wrap up the episode. I'm going to have a birthday pedicure with a good friend of mine, and I need to get on the road if I'm going to be there in time. So I'm going to wrap up and say goodbye. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today, and just listening to me prattle on about my knitting a little bit. And making it through this really awkward first episode with me. I feel really awkward, but I'm really proud of myself for making it through the first episode of Flax Golden Knits. And all I have to do now is edit and upload, which is a whole thing unto itself, but I have confidence that I can do it. So until next time, again, this is the Flax Golden Knits podcast. You can find me as Flax Golden Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. That's also how you can contact me, as well as, I guess, in the comments section down below. I will try to put all of the show notes in the down bar, right down there. And I hope you come back for another episode. I hope I come back for another episode. Anyway, until next time, very happy knitting and crafting, and thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Bye. Oh, thanks. I need a haircut. Everything's backwards. I can't figure it out. Oh no. It's making it worse. Just recorded 2 minutes of me fixing my bangs.